Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Don't Drink My Soda. Well, I did warn you. A long time ago, I was washing dishes in a Denny's restaurant. As dishwashers, we were allowed one soda per shift. My work partner and I kept our sodas on a little shelf near where the busboys would put the full tubs of dishes. One of them thought it was funny to put down the bus tub, pick up our soda and drink half of it, put it back on the shelf, and run away laughing. I asked him not to do it several times. He kept doing it. But instead of getting mad, I got even. Restaurants buy cases of frozen steaks and set them out to thaw in big stainless steel tubs. After all the steaks are taken out and cooked, there's usually a 1/4 inch of blood with miscellaneous bits in it left in the bottom of the pan. I grabbed a glass out of the bus tub that had ice in it, poured it full of old cow blood, added a straw, and put it in the usual spot. Same guy comes running back with a tub of dishes, puts it down, and grabbed the glass. I yell across the kitchen at him, "Don't drink that!" And he just laughed at me and chugged about half of it, like he usually did. He got a real funny look on his face and asked me, "What was that?" "Cow blood. Want some more?" I replied, and tipped the pan up so he could see the cascade of gristly bits and old blood running to the bottom. He headed straight for the nearest trash can, and I think he threw up everything he had eaten in the last week. Took him about 10 minutes. On the bright side, the busboys quit drinking our sodas after that. The next story is titled, Move Your Lousy GF Here and Never Want to Spend Time at Her Place? Think again. Back in college, I was living in a house with 3 of my friends. One of these friends was a bad roommate. Never cleaned, never chipped in on shared resources, cleaning supplies, etc. You get the gist. Well, it became even more unbearable to live with him when he decided to have his girlfriend move in without consulting any of us. She never contributed to rent and also didn't clean. He gave her his copy of our house key and she moved in. Even after attempts of talking to him about it, he didn't agree with us. We'd ask why they couldn't spend some time at her place, and he said it was because she lived with her parents on the other side of town. Our house had 3 floors, and each floor had a door that was unlocked by the house key. The house also had a front door that was always unlocked that none of us had a key to. Roommate and his girlfriend would always go out at night and come back late. Maybe you can see my petty revenge brewing already. One night, they went out, and I decided to lock the front door so they couldn't get back in. In the wee hours of the morning, they tried to come back, but the front door was locked. After banging on the door, trying to throw rocks at our windows, etc., they finally gave up, and he was forced to go back to her place where he should have been all along. Had to get an Uber to go all the way to the other side of town, too. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The next story is titled, Ghost Me. I don't know you anymore. Posted this as a comment on another sub, but was made aware that it will fit here. Boy, we were just done with school, so young and innocent still, maybe me more than him. Or I should call it childish. Took me out on a few dates. We kissed and danced and just had fun. About a month in, my family and I went on a trip that was planned months in advance, and he still had to work. There was no cell reception where we went. I was walking on sunshine. Came back after 4 days. He and our other friends came to tell me that he started seeing one of our friends' friends in the meantime. Crushed me. Invited me to a party or sleepover that night, which I declined as I didn't want to see the new couple. Next day, he left without saying goodbye. Turns out he knew his dad was going to ship him off to his mom 13 hours away, and he obviously wanted to make the most of his time left, instead of dating the invisible girl. None of us knew until after he left. Completely ghosted all of us. About 2 or 3 years later, he came to visit his dad, who was still living down the street. He came to say hi. He dropped by every year before Christmas, but fortunately, I always missed him. I almost fell on my back when I saw him, but pulled myself together and decided to pretend that I don't recognize him. The more he tried explaining who he was, the more I pretended to assume he is a friend of my brother's and apologizing for not knowing all said brother's friends. He couldn't say too much as his new girlfriend was right next to him. After a minute or two, he gave up and let me call my brother, whom he was also friends with back then. They spoke a minute or two, and he left in a hurry. I never saw him again. The next story is titled, Neighbors Steal My Parents' Property. Claims he's the landowner and calls 911 on them for trespassing. There are not many things in life that can get me angry over the top, but messing with my parents is one of them. I hate when people dare to be annoying or talk down to them. My parents are in their 80s, but healthy and still managing to live in their own home alone. While I don't live with them and never met their neighbor in my entire life, he only had to do one thing to become my enemy. I guess he thought messing with the two old people next door would mean he could get away with it without a single problem. He probably didn't even know of my existence, but he found out sooner or later. My mother called me one day telling me that neighbor had started putting up posts and saying it was where his new fence would go. The only thing is that it was way onto my parents' property, and it would end up digging up half of their driveway. They have a little bit of an odd driveway where it wraps all the way into the back of the house, since their garage is back-facing for some reason. His new fence was going to be where my parents had concrete and wouldn't allow them enough clearance to get their car back to the garage. On the behalf of my parents, I decided to go next door and talk to the neighbor myself. My idea at the time was maybe if he realized they had somebody helping advocate for them, he would realize they weren't such an easy target and back down. I still think that it might have worked if I was a big, strong-looking guy, but I wasn't. I was the exact opposite. I looked like I couldn't even talk to you, maybe only pet your cat. Not even your cat, because cats are mean. Your fish or something. Me. Excuse me, I want to talk to you about this new fence you're building. Neighbor. Are you the guy from the company? I thought you were coming over later, but I can show you where I want it so you can order the right amount of wood. Me. Actually, I'm the son of the couple that lives next door to you. Your fence plan is way on their side of the property, and I want to just tell you that if you build that fence, I'm going to make sure that you don't get away with it. He expectedly laughed in my face and closed the door on me. I just wanted to be nice enough to give him a fair warning before I moved forward with the process of destroying him. I know that he didn't see me as a threat, but he must have had something in the back of his mind telling him that there might be a problem because he put off the actual destruction of land and building of the fence. My wife was a lawyer, and when I went home, I talked to her about what steps would be best to take. First, we decided that it was best to have all the paperwork related to the land in hand. My parents needed to have all the documents necessary just to be sure no one could fool them. We decided to have a survey, and then see how we approached the situation. Unfortunately, it took a while to get the survey, and in the meantime, neighbor, I guess, wasn't worried anymore, and started destroying my parents' property to build his fence. When the report came back, it turned out that not only did my parents own the land he was building the fence on, but also owned a small portion of my neighbor's property as well. I took the report and brought it to neighbor, warning him one last time to stop what he was doing and pay for the repairs for the damage he had done. I guess this guy was pretty cocky, because even with proof in front of his face, he didn't care, and told me to not come to his house again or else he would call the police. I hired a lawyer and we started doing all the necessary legal steps. A formal document was sent to neighbor requesting to put a stop to his construction and pay the money for damages. Once that got ignored, we were able to take him to court where a judge would force him to accept what was on the document. There was no question of if he was going to have to stop and pay to fix my parents' driveway. With what the survey found, though, there was something else potentially at play. Neighbor had a whole area built for barbecues in his yard that was crossing his property line into my parents'. Which was perfect, as once with the fence, we could also destroy his barbecue area. My parents are both some nice and kind people, and didn't want to destroy his barbecue, but they also didn't want him to build on their property. As the lawyer was getting the case ready and we waited for a date, some other things happened. The neighbor continued building the fence without a problem. And one morning, my mother wanted to have a little picnic on the grass in the yard. The neighbor saw her and quickly called the police, telling them that my mom was trespassing. When the police came, my mom explained to them everything about the fence and the lawsuit. The police left and encouraged my mom to enjoy her picnic, but she couldn't, as he kept insisting and shouting at her. And that's when my mom called. When I heard what she said, I drove there as fast as I could. Me. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Neighbor. That's my property, and I don't want your old mother on it. After hearing those words, I called my lawyer and asked him to speed up the process. And then finally, the day came. The lawyer was more than capable of destroying neighbor than I would have imagined. The only defense he really had was his survey that was from an unreliable source. When he tried to argue there was no way for him to know that his wasn't accurate, my lawyer showed that he signed the certified mail that included a survey as well as legal documents stating to stop his construction. His other argument was that he needed a fence to be placed there due to trash, noise, and other annoying things my parents supposedly do. The judge didn't seem convinced that two elderly people were being so loud or unpleasant that a fence needed to be built. But anyway, it didn't matter, even if his arguments would have been good, because he was building on their property. But of course, as expected, he lost. He had to pay to have the driveway fully repaired, his barbecue removed, and a new fence was built, now much closer to his house than he wanted it to be. My parents were just happy to get some peace, and I was glad neighbor learned not to mess with them. Just because your neighbors might be old doesn't mean that they're easy targets to take advantage of. Stop messing with older people, they're tired enough. They don't need all your drama crap. TLDR, after my parents' neighbor tried to build a fence on their property, I warn him to stop, and he doesn't listen to me, so I prepare to sue him. I get a land survey that shows that he's building on their property, and that even a part of his barbecue area is passing on their property too. He doesn't stop again after a formal warning, so we end up in court. His excuses get brushed off by the judge, and he's told that he's fully in the wrong. He must pay to repair the damage he caused to my parents' driveway and remove his barbecue. And so, my parents' driveway and silence are once again safe, and I'm a happy son. The next story is titled, Drink My Coffee? Enjoy gagging on a vile cocktail. Never thought I would post something in this sub, but here you go. My routine to get coffee is usually like this. I take my water bottle and fill it up, get a cup of coffee. I prepare it by adding 1 spoon of sugar, 1 shot of black coffee, which is basically an espresso shot, and then a cup full of strong coffee setting. Perfect for how I like it. I bring the coffee and my bottle to my desk, and then go off to pee. That way the sugar dissolves and the coffee cools a bit too. I have a colleague who's also become a close friend. He started this annoying thing to take a sip from my coffee. He doesn't like coffee, doesn't drink it, a tea guy through and through. When I come back from the washroom, he'll grin at me and then take a sip. He only does it to annoy me, and it works. Well, today I put the sugar, put 2 shots of espresso, and then used the strong tea setting on the coffee/tea machine. Presenting to you a real cocktail from Taste Hell. I kept the cup of vile liquid on my desk and went to pee. As I come back, my colleague grins at me, picks up the cup, takes a sip, and spews it out. It was glorious. Hopefully, he's learned his lesson. The last story is titled, Doing What I Want. I have a friend who used to tell me I couldn't listen to the same music as her because then I was copying her. I started to believe her and stopped myself from enjoying the music I liked because she was somehow entitled to that genre. Lol, this is incredibly childish, and I'm aware of that now, so I woke up one day and decided not to let this have any power over me at all. I posted a photo on my story showing off that I listen to a band she also likes. She has yet to respond to that story. I don't even know if this counts as a form of revenge, but I wanted to post because I'm proud of myself. I'm no longer going to stop myself from expressing myself the way I want to. So, I'm going to do it, regardless of what she thinks about it. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.